Hello, everybody, and welcome back. We're looking at question number 22 in Part C of our 2012 Grade 7 Gauss. The quiz has 3 questions, with each question worth 1 mark. If 20% of the students got 0 questions correct, 5% got 1 question correct, 40% got 2 questions correct, and 35% got all 3 questions correct, then the overall class mean or class average mark was what? Based on these decimals, I think we'll probably have to bust out our calculator, but we'll see. Okay? So, what can we do? Well, depending on your level of comfort with percentages, there's a couple ways we could approach this question. Okay? If you want to, and this is useful for you when you start getting into high school and university, you start worrying about your marks, you can actually start calculating what you can get. So 20% got 0, 5% got 1, 40% got 2, and 35% got 3. Double check that that is correct. Yes. Okay. So just before we get into calculating, we can see the answer should probably be around 2. 0, there's 20% of the students got 0, and that really drags the mark down. But more students got a 3, which brings the marks back up. And if you look at the potential answers, you'll see a lot of them are around 2. Okay? The biggest is 2.35. I think it might be something like 1.8 or 1.9. I think the 0 has a lot of pull here. Okay? But it gives me a rough mental idea. Okay? So here's one way you can go about doing this question. So 20% got 0. So the amount of mark that those students contribute is 0.2 times 0. Okay? 5% got 1, so 5% is really the same as 0.05. Okay? So 0.5 times 1, well, those 5% of students contribute 0.05 to the overall mark. How am I getting these numbers here? Percents are measured out of 100. So this is really 20% divided by 100%. The percents cancel out and you get 0.2. Okay? So similarly, we'll get 0.4 and 0.35. Okay? So the students who got 2 contribute an overall 0.8 to the total mark. The students who got 3 contribute a 1.05, and if we just add all this up, okay, we'll see we'll get 18, carry the, oh, my numbers are not lined up. Okay, so we'll get 0, carry the 1, 9, and 1. So we'll get 1.9. Okay? That's one way to see the question. Okay? Here's another way. I didn't think of this way. I did actually a slightly more advanced algebra-y way when I did this a few months ago with my enrichment kids. But one of them said, you know, if you've got percentages, why don't you just assume the class has 100 students? Now, I never like doing assumptions, okay? Because sometimes that can ruin questions. Here it doesn't matter so much, but imagine this were part A of a much bigger question, all dealing with the same class size. If you make an early assumption about class size when they really haven't told us anything about the class size, that could screw you up later on when you don't go back and say, how do I change things if it wasn't 100? Okay? But if you assume you've got 100 students, what's 20% of 100? And the reason we choose 100 is because, well, 20% of 100 is just 20. 5% of 100 is just 5. Okay? And so if you assume that you've got 100 students, you know how many zeros were scored. You know how many ones were scored and 2s and 3s. And so to calculate the average, you add up all the marks. Well, you're going to add up 20 zeros. You could write out 0 plus 0 plus 0, but let's do 20 times 0. You're going to get 5 1s, you're going to get 40 2s, and you're going to get 35 5s, and you're going to divide by the total number of numbers you added up, which is going to be 100 because you assumed we had 100 students. So you'll get 0 plus 5 plus 80 plus 105 all over 100, and that adds up to 190 over 100, and that gets you 1.9. Okay? Now, when I originally did this question for those students, because one of them said 100 students, and I said, yeah, I don't like assumptions. So what I would do, and it may be a bit too algebra-y for your taste, but it's kind of a hybrid of the two. Okay, this way of doing things, I think you can very easily jump into if you're really comfortable with percentages. I think this is an obvious assumption you could make to do the question. As I said, I don't like assumptions, so I would start by assuming that there were S students. Okay? And I'll assume that S is an appropriate size so that my percentages turn out to be whole numbers. But how many students got 0? Well, 20% out of 100%, or you could times S. So 20% of S. So 20% divided by 100% times S, and that's going to be 0.2 S, or a fifth S. Okay? 5% of S is going to be 0.05 S. Okay? And if you make S 100, you'll get the previous numbers. Okay? If you make S 1, you'll get these numbers. But you'll see when you do it with this algebra, the S really doesn't matter. Because the S will end up dividing out at the end. So I'll show that. Okay. So our average is, well, how many people got 0? 0.25 times S. I'm actually, should I? No. Okay, so this is an S. I know sometimes my S's look like 5s. So I was thinking about maybe changing it from S, but no, we'll just make it a little bit bigger. How many people got 1? Well, I don't know how many students there are, but I know the number of students times 0.05 must be the number of students who got 1. And we just keep doing this. So 0.4 times S is the number of students who got 2. 0.35 times S is the number of students who got 3. And, to do averages, you add up all the numbers. So this many zeros, this many ones, and divide by S. And this is why the S doesn't matter, because the S down here is going to cancel out with all the S's up here. And so you actually get the very first calculation we did. Okay? That's all. And so you still get 1.9 when all is said and done. Okay? On the top, you get 1.9S divided by S if you didn't want to cancel the S's out right away. Okay? So there's 3 ways to do it. The last one really ties the first 2 together, but, it's a grade 7 Gauss. If you want to just say, oh, it's a percent question, let's assume I've got 100 students, that gets you the answer and it gets it quickly for you. That's great because it leaves us more time to do our next question, which will be question 23. Okay. Oh, whoa, hold on. I was about to say, let's move on to that. I never actually circled the answer. It should be B. Okay? So B. Okay? Now let's get the fresh page for question 23, and we'll take a look at that next time.